I'm going to go ahead. Hi. I'm going to go ahead and excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and replace. This will be part 3 to figuring out the P2A00 code. And what I did was some diagnosing. I hurt my wrist off camera, so yeah, I can't do a whole bunch of holding. But what I did do was a bunch of diagnosing, which is probably more so what you're here for, is trying to figure this out. Now, along the way, I figured out that the first code to come back, because I erased it several times, drove a couple times because I wanted to see what comes back first, okay? That's another indicator of what's going on. Now, I think on part two, how do you hold your twos? You hold your two like that or like that? Do you count your thumb as one? Anyway, so on part 2, on the end of it, I do believe that I replaced the mass airflow sensor right there. Okay, so after that, it did a lot better, but it wasn't right, and I could tell. Maybe 15 minutes driving, and the check engine light automatically came back on. I will have a check engine light that will come on automatically, just because I know that I have the evap canister code in the back that will show up, you know, as soon as it runs through the evap emissions check. But the first code to come back wasn't both of them. It was the P2A00, which is the passenger side, which is bank 1. Okay, so it's registering a lean condition on that bank first. If it was both sides that came back, all the time, I would definitely lead towards mass airflow sensor, lack of fuel, or the intake leak, I believe is the other cause of this possibly. So what I did was I got the car warm, and you spray like a flammable aerosol, brake cleaner, something like that, around all the surface matings and everywhere it would connect or whatever, and go all the way around it. I doused the top side of this motor with brake cleaner and when it was running, I should say, and nothing. The idea of it is, if you don't know, is for it to actually be sucking in the air, and if it's flammable, then it will be a boost of fuel, and thus the RPM will rise up at that time, right when you hit in that point if it was loose. It didn't raise up at all. So I don't personally have an intake leak below this one or this one or this one or the one down below. It seems like it's all okay. So what I wanted to do was test my ignition coils. Now the ignition coils can start to fail and not really give you the correct spark, and then it's not doing the right combustion thing. So I checked all those. Now I'm sure there's a better way and a more proper way of trying to check the ignition coils, but I checked them on resistance and it gave me a story. And this side was just about in the same range. I did this a day ago, so I can't remember the exact number, but basically the resistance between the three on this side were all about the same. The three on the bank one, where the code came back, I have one that's slightly dropping out, just slightly different from the rest of them. I want to say that these were around 40,000 for 4,000 ohms of resistance. There was one that had lower. It was like 38 or 37, something like that. And so that one might be my issue. But before I do a whole bunch of, shooting the old parts cannon off and trying to figure everything out, I wanted to work with what I had. And something that I had from the previous motor was the old spark plugs, because if you don't have correct combustion, again, then it's not gonna, ignite right. Now, what I did, because I did have these, on the shelf or whatever for quite a while, and they were on my last motor that did blow up, but it didn't blow up and hit any of the coil, or, any of the electrode tips here. Then nothing got smashed or anything like that. But what I did was wanted to make sure that these were right. Okay, so what I did was I did a resistance test on these as well, with this being grounded, and then all you do is basically touch the very tip of the electrode in there, and you will get a resistance reading. I based that against what I Googled and found out what the base resistance was, which the Autolite, these are Autolite APP 5325s for the 350Z. I think these are platinum, but don't quote me. Anyway, that right there or whatever, these show up to be about 5,000 ohms of resistance. Okay. Now, why is that important, you might ask? Is because I took out the spark plugs that were there, and I was like, well, maybe those spark plugs are a bit on the worn side, and that's what's giving me an incomplete combustion and causing this issue. Now, what it was that I took the NGK spark plug out, and I also Googled that one as well, and that one was around 3,000 ohms of resistance. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, 4,000 ohms of resistance is more resistance and making the coils work harder than 3,000 ohms of resistance. So I cleaned up all of the actual spark plugs that I have in there and reused those, with the idea being that the coils don't have to work as hard to supply the spark that it needs at a higher RPM, which is usually where a lot of issues start to happen with a lot of people's vehicles. Now, when I did the spark plugs, I took all of them out, and I did realize that the spark plugs were very different in the gap. One was at about 54 thousandths, and I found a couple at 45 thousandths, one at 44 thousandths. There was a decent range going on with the gap in between the electrode on the spark plug itself. So what I did was I basically couldn't, I was trying to do this quickly. So what I did was I didn't go to factory spec, I don't think. I did, however, base them all on 42,000s and just cleaning up those spark plugs and the electrode and trying to, you know, sand everything off and get it cleaned, you know what I mean, and readjust it back down where it's supposed to be at. I threw those back in and it ran a lot better, let me tell you something. So after that, I think I have to pause the video and show you what I found also on Google. Looking up the code on Google, this is pretty much the list that it comes by. And looking at the list, I do not have a failed O2 sensor anymore because I replaced all 4 at this point. There could be a possible burnt, broken, or disconnected wiring and or connectors, but as you'll see after this little clip that it will actually be fine. I don't have any engine misfires as a P0 code, or I think it's a P0300 to 306. That would be a misfire, which I do not have, especially even with as many times as I reset the actual thing. I don't have any vacuum leaks as I sprayed down the motor. I do not have a bad mass airflow sensor as that was actually replaced with a brand new one, but unfortunately I do have engine exhaust leaks, which could be that whole issue. Double checking everything that I found against what I found. Here's another site that I found on Google, and it's pretty much saying the same thing. I don't have a faulty O2 sensor. There can be a connector issue, but I don't think so. I checked for any kind of blown fuses along the system, and there were none. Corroded wiring, vacuum leaks, didn't see any at the time or hear anything. No misfires. I do have an exhaust leak. No bad mass airflow sensor, and you can only have the mass airflow sensor or a manifold absolute pressure sensor. It's one or the other. Now, with that list being read and a little bit explained, the main one that I do know that I do have is an exhaust leak. So I'm going to attack the exhaust leak and see where I go from there. I do know that the flex pipes on the Y pipe down below are bad. They've been increasingly getting worse and worse or whatever just recently, which kind of goes with my problem kind of increasing, I guess, or lack of performance, and then this code pops up. So yeah, I'm going to check for an exhaust leak and go from there. But also, searching and scouring over the internet, I have found 3 things that were kind of interesting. One being of which is the fact that somebody who fixed this said that they had to do a timing chain guide on that bank to actually fix his issue, and then he never had that issue again. I've also found, because this is probably not the first video that you've actually watched to figure this problem out. There's another guy with a video on the great land of YouTube that actually fixed it, because the code is for upstream. So technically there should be an issue with the upstream, or the intake of the thing, or O2 sensor itself. But what it was actually the second or downstream sensors that were not reacting right, that ended up giving the code. And once he replaced that, it was all dandy for him. So every vehicle and every problem is going to be different. Everybody boasts about, well, not everybody, but automakers boast about OBD2 being thousands of codes, but even with not even 1,000 sensors on a vehicle, and so many codes, thousands of codes past that, I would figure that they would have something and be a little bit more specific to what each problem is, but it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and figure that I think the exhaust leak might be causing slight of the issue, because the idea is that your exhaust doesn't just stream out smoothly. It kind of puffs back and forth and chugs along. And when it does that little chugging motion, back and forth or whatever, it might be actually sucking in air through that leak And if it's anywhere near swirling near that O2 sensor, then that O2 sensor can, not read right what's in the actual air flowing by. So then it reads it off, and this might be it. But yeah, simplest thing at this point is going to be to, I know I do have the exhaust leak problem down there. I'm going to check to see if there's any kind of fuse that's blown, and figure out if, there's maybe a circuit that's dead. But overall, I don't think it's that, but you never know. You honestly never know. Alright, so these are the two new downstream sensor 2s. I did remove them. I have a few things to mention up under here, like I removed them because I wanted to see if the extendo bungs were causing an issue between clearance inside and it being older, off-brand or something, that maybe they were just too much carbon in there or something. So I don't get as good as a reading or whatever as I would like, so I might be modifying this in the future. But regardless, I have those sensors, and for test purposes, I did buy, all four came in a pack, same company, everything, and it worked out really well. The upstream seemed to be reading like really, really well, way better than the ones I got from Napa. So I'm happy with that, and I do recommend that company if you're going to go for O2 sensors. But just because you replace the O2 sensors doesn't mean that this is actually going to be fixed. Now, there's one or two people who said that replacing the downstream sensors, which are these right here on the 350Z, not the ones up there, if you can see that, if I just move my finger out the freaking way. That's the upstream one up there. This is the downstream on the test pipe there, and you have to have that little extender bung thing to basically delay a lot of the gases, because too many gases are flying by because you don't have the actual stock catalytic converter. So it is what it is. I replaced those with the original ones that I had in there before, just to kind of do a little bit of diagnosing, trying to just figure out with parts that I had here. Replacing them with the other ones, I did have a bad back one, but no, I did not have a bad back one. Okay, they were just a little bit slower. What I wanted to do was take the bungs out and put those directly in to see if they would do the usual code back here, which is, I think it was the P0430. If you get the test pipes and you don't have the extender piece in there, then you get the P0430. That's the ones that I got. So I know that something is reading off of those wires and into the wiring harness in the center there. One question that I really could use you guys to help me out with the comment below. On the wiring harness to the body, is it the white connector that goes to the driver's side O2 sensor, or do I have that switched? Because I've replaced this motor and I've done a lot of work where I've had to disconnect and reconnect. I may have switched it. Okay, now if you guys know or have an eyeball on it, I know a couple of you having the issue even as we speak right now. So if you could look up under there and tell me that the black one is for the black connector on the wiring harness, is for the passenger side, which would be bank 1. I was trying to read it on the I disconnected one to see if I can get a reading to figure out, I just disconnected the one, and then I was like, all right, let me go up, upstairs and figure out, look on the scanner, see if it's, one of them dead on the second. But I couldn't get it to do that at the moment. It was still registering that it was there, so it probably had to do some kind of a self-check, and I didn't want to drive down the street with that just being, even disconnected that long, because if these go bad and read the wrong way and your motor goes the wrong way, then it will lean your motor out severely, and you'll end up having a dry motor, which can cause obviously issues, because you have to rebuild your motor. But Pepper, will you quit? I'm recording. Quit. Stop. Anyway. So replace those with the original ones. It did pass the 40P0430 code. I'm going to go ahead. Hi. I'm going to go ahead and excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and replace these and put the other ones back in there. I think what I'm going to end up doing for my next step. You're okay. I'm just scooting on the cardboard. Don't mind my bubblegum job here. This is for test purposes only because I have one hell of a... This is the stock Y pipe, and I took all the shields off so I could figure out what was leaking. And the flex pipe on the other side was way worse, which is why I just had a scrap piece of metal down here. And yeah, you're talking about way too big of a pipe going into something way too small. So I ended up having to weld just a little bit, and then I took it over to the press and pressed it a lot closer, and then I welded and pressed it and welded and pressed it, which is why it's got this funky little pinch kind of thing going on right now. Yeah, like I said, this is just for test purposes because I just want the exhaust leak to be gone, and I happen to have some kind of scrap metal here to try and figure this out. Problem is, though, is that when I did this one, this code went away. The P2A03, it went away as soon as I replaced this and did this kind of job. It does have one little pinhole, which, I mean, like I said, this is don't rate me on my welds today. Okay, this is a lot of conditions going on here. Leave me alone. So anyway. I still have a little pinhole or whatever, one or two, but overall this is like way better than what it was. I'm gonna chop this one off and see if I can show you guys the inside, because I started the car, and what you can do is start the car, obviously jack it up because these aren't exactly like trucks where you can just slide up under here, and move your hand. Don't touch anything hot, okay? But hover your hand over top of it and everything. You'll feel like hot air coming through. And this being a accordion style flex pipe of some sort, I'm pretty sure this is cracked because I started it and I moved my hand around and there was like heat coming from the top side that wasn't just normal radiating heat. It was like it was blowing out. So I'm going to go ahead and chop this off, try to see if I can show you guys how this is bad, because the weaving usually, if these go bad, the weaving will blacken out from the carbon, and yet I got a little bit there, but that's not really, that's more so just age right there. There's not really a lot of carbon showing through here, okay? That's just age here, age there. I couldn't see anything on top, but this is the best view I've gotten since I did the job, or actually I took the pipe down to finish welding it when I was on the press. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take this down and see if I can weld this, because this might actually be the issue. The idea what I was talking about, even though this is pretty far away, like I was saying, with it chugging along back and forth in the exhaust because it doesn't come out smoothly. That was an issue before with this test pipe. I love these eBay test pipes, but that cracked right there. So I went around it and sealed it all up, and there's not one bit there. That was a long time ago. What can happen is if you have some kind of a leak, like right here per se, then supposedly in between strokes, it can actually suck in air and go all the way and mess with this air mixture enough to mess with this one and cause an issue for the reading. So that's a far stretch as far as, you know, length, and trying to understand the fact that it's messing with the air all the way up here. But for some odd reason, I did this one, and it's the exact same white pipe, you know, same length down the other side, and yet I do believe this one is done and a-okay. That side is fixed, I think. Not for certain. I still want to drive it a whole bunch. I still haven't even put gas in this thing since I told you guys last time that I was going to put gas. I literally have just been driving around little by little. But again, if you guys could comment down below and let me know on your wiring harness, again, if that black connector for the O2 sensor does lead to this, because the O2 sensors have a keyway, so they don't get mixed up, but they can get intertwined because they're the same key. So that's kind of like where I could use an extra, set of words, just letting me know, like, am I right having this right there with the white going to the passengers, or bank 2, I want to say, but it's driver side. Okay, as you see, that's driver side there, so no mirror images here. And black connector goes for passenger side, which would be bank 1. So that would really help me out. I appreciate everybody commenting and all that. I do. I appreciate every single comment. It's motivating, as well as I'm just trying to figure this out. I have a lot of things in life really going on right now, but I'm trying to get this done. I hate having my car down. Pepper hates having my car down because she likes to go for rides. So I'm gonna try and get this all settled up so I can get from up under here, because my pet's trying to lick me as I'm okay. I'm okay, Pepper. So I'm gonna try and figure this out, cut this, show you guys, because I'm pretty sure you can see on the inside of the accordion that it's actually cracked. And I'll be cutting this back and taking this shield off. Did I take that shield off? No, I just cut that one back. So I just cut this one back below there where that clamp goes. And so I had enough room to actually weld. And yeah, I welded the crap out of that. Just kept welding and kept welding. If I had like a 210 or anyway, tons of excuses there, but regardless, yeah, let me do this and I will show you guys the inside of this accordion. Alright, I just cut the flex pipe off that side, and passenger side, bank 1. Okay, so if you look around it, there's not a lot going on, but there's like almost like a water stain or something, like right there. There's a real thin spot right there. Some corrosive green over here, but nothing out the norm. You can hear that. Okay, so when you go on the inside, if you can see that, the webbing is still there on the one side. You can see that on the inside, but if you flip it around, yeah, that's sign number 1 of letting you know that this part is under failure. So give me a second. I'm going to see if I can rip out that interior weaving there. The same, it looks the same as this, but just a little bit tighter. I'm going to see if I can pull it out to see if I can see the metal, because I'm pretty sure you can see that little blink of metal in the bottom there. That would be the crack. So let me do this and show you that. Now here we go. This is the inside. That ring right there is what it's like, the keeper of some sort, and it is good on that side. As you see, I even tried to twist it out of there, but yeah, that side's okay. This side though, however, put this in front of the camera, that white crack right there in the center without the light is going to be an exhaust leak. Okay, as I try and rotate this on camera, it's not exactly... Oh, there's one deep down in there, if you can see that one. There, that's another one. I'll try and point with it with my finger, which it doesn't want to focus. Wonderful. See if I can get this to focus in there. Okay, awesome. So right in there is a secondary crack, okay? And that's just the ones with this not having any pressure on it. That's another one. See if I can flex this well. Yeah, I'm not trying to... These are little spiky little pieces, and I am not trying to cut myself on them. They are... Yeah. They're like alfalfas all over this. Alfalfa hairs? All over this thing. Regardless, yeah, that's an exhaust leak, so I'm going to take... another piece of scrap metal here. And... for test purposes only, yeah. But I'm going to go ahead and You can see that's been sitting around here for a little while. I'm gonna go ahead and start mocking and welding up the replacement for that flex pipe. You should obviously replace it with an actual flex pipe as well, same diameter, blah blah blah. I don't have that, and I'm working with what I got here, so I'm gonna go ahead and start trying to get this ready to weld back up there, and as always, go from there. I'm not going to stop until this is fixed, because I'm not going to let a simple code like this stop me from driving my car, and I don't want to drive it while it's like this, because go figure, it is one of those codes that could really shorten the life of the of your Z or Nissan 3.5 liter. I don't know what you're working on, but comment down below. Give me the year and the make, model, what you're working on that you might be experiencing the same code from. Well, I did cut that off. It's got those two shields. I would have took the both shields off, but it's welded right here. So I don't want to try and undo that whole weld there and the whole weld there just to get this shield off. I'm just going to end up cutting this shield back a little bit, where there's a, I don't know if you could, it is not focusing where it should. Okay. There's a gap in there, so as soon as right there on that gap, I'm gonna try and hit it right there with a wheel, cut it back a little bit more, so then we can just get to the raw single pipe. Or maybe I should do no, because it's gonna leak. It's gonna leak. So yeah, I have to cut that back, and then yeah, I can start placing this together and welding it. And side note, there was very minimal black marking. This isn't exactly new. It's got even a bevel on it right here because of the age of it, but it's not rusted all the way out of any sort. It's just needs fixed with the flex pipe. So I'm going to flatten this out too, just to make sure that when I do weld this back up, it's got a nice flush flat surface. And yeah, then we'll go from there.